Nick Geddes is off, so I am going solo here today, so I get to push all the buttons. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. We'll get everything working today, and we got a great show planned for you. If I can execute, unlike the Buccaneers in many instances, then we'll have a good show. If not, it'll flame out like the game against Dallas. Welcome into the program, and we are so pleased that you're with us today. Greg Auman's going to join us here in mere moments right off the top. Fox Sports now covering the entire NFC South. We'll chat with him in just minutes or seconds away. Scott Carter from FloridaGators.com is going to join us at 10:20 to talk about the Gators recruiting season, and also Billy Napier had some very interesting things to say about the NIL situation, because they are smack in the middle of the biggest controversy, but I think it really applies to the larger world of college football and what all coaches are going through. So we'll talk with Scott about that. I think that's going to be a very interesting conversation. And Casey Hudson's going to join us at 11 o'clock from the NHL All-Star Game down in Sunrise. She's covering that and is going to co-host with me from 11 to 12 today. So we'll have a good time chatting with her, all things Bolts, all things Bucs. So should be fun. All right. Without further ado, I want to bring in our friend Greg Auman. Hopefully he's there and we can hear him. What's up, Greg? How are you? And what do you know? It's not there. Stand by. Hopefully I can get this working. Nope, not yet. Greg, are you there? Dadgummit. And why did I know this was going to happen today? Greg, are you there? He is not. I'll try one more time. Something. We got that. This is embarrassing, but it's okay. I don't have Greg. At least I cannot hear him right now. All right, we will switch gears here, and we'll try to catch up with Greg a little bit later on, or I will try one more time. Let's try this. Greg, are you there? Can I hear you now? Greg, are you there? He is not. I will try to get him back on here shortly as we continue to do this live one more time. We'll call him one more time and see if we can get him on. We cannot. I know this is hard for you guys to listen to. Probably not still there, but we'll try it one more time. Greg, are you JP. There? I got you now. I do not know what happened, but yeah. I do have you now. What's up, partner? How are you?
No, good. So I was going to make a "Can you hear me? I can hear you" joke, but we really went through. I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for your patience on that. And I have no idea what just happened. I pushed all the right buttons and nothing happened. That's the world we live in today. But thanks so much for joining us. No problem. Let's go inside your world as of yesterday. And as I'm, waking up and turning on the TV, and I see Tom Brady has retired. Oh, that'll change today's plans a little bit. What was it like for you yesterday? Because we'll remember where we were last year, February 1st, and this year. What was your day like yesterday?
Much easier. I was on my phone as it would happen when it's one of those where, obviously you have a guy like Brady on notification and
yes.
Got that. And it's like you watch the video waiting for him to hit usually he does the whole I'm retiring from eating dairy or something like that. And there was no punchline. There was no joke, and got it up quick. Last time he retired, I was on a plane and missed it by like an hour. So I was excited just to be in the right place when it happened this time around.
Were you surprised at all?
Not really. I think my default at the end of the year was that he was done. To hear the way he talked kind of post game with Dallas, it sounded like a goodbye. It sounded like he at least was making sure he had kind of been polite and thankful and gracious in leaving. Not that he couldn't change his mind, but no, I kind of thought that. I mean, as much as there's been speculation about him playing just about everywhere, there wasn't really, for me at least, a place that made sense from a football standpoint and a family standpoint. Just the logistics of his kids being in Miami, a son in New York, that to me made it really hard for him to consider Vegas or San Francisco or anything where he's so far removed from his family for a big chunk of the year.
I agree with that, and that's why I had said I thought it was going to be Miami or Tampa Bay, and I think Miami kind of took themselves out of it last week, and then early in the week, I'm like, okay, it's either Tampa Bay or bust, and it became bust. I thought it was something interesting. I was listening to Rick Stroud's podcast this morning, and he mentioned I like you probably was trying to decipher where that video was shot. I'm looking at the vegetation. Okay, that looks like East Coast Miami because of the sea grapes, but it could also be Tampa. Condos in the back. Do I recognize those buildings? I mean, I'm trying to do all these forensics, and I'm like, I think that's Miami. Looked like a beach in Miami, but he was in LA the night before, right? At the 80 for Brady. So could he possibly have recorded this earlier in the week in Miami or last week? What do you think?
He could have. It's funny. I was joking that we need the ransom video thing where you hold up today's newspaper
yes.
just to make it clear it's a live video. I don't know. Again, I feel like Brady has better access to private jets than anybody on earth.
True.
So the idea that he finished in LA with Lily Tomlin at whatever time and then got on a plane and 5 hours later is home still seems kind of possible.
Yeah.
He told the Bucs at 6, so there's a pretty quick turnaround there. It felt fairly candid and honest.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what he was going for, but I mean, he's so slick and well produced and choreographed that to have just a selfie video for 30 seconds where he kind of just gets it out of the way. To me, it felt like I want to get this out on my terms. I don't want anybody else to beat me to the punch. I'm not telling anybody until I tell everybody, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was very well done, too. It was very sincere, and I felt like this is for good. But as I was pulling in this morning, I'm thinking, in 40 days, when he's a little less compressed or a little decompressed, I could say, and he's feeling really good, he's probably going to be out in a park somewhere throwing the football around. He's going to be – people are calling, right? He's going to be like, But that said, I think he's done for good. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the challenge will be in August. Right now, it's going to feel the same as every other off season for him.
Yeah.
This is downtime. This is do whatever you want time. But I think when it's August, when teams are reporting there'll be a team where such and such gets hurt and is out for the year, and you got a playoff ready team that just needs a quarterback. And I'm sure he'll be tempted, as many retired guys are, I think, in their first time away. But I really think he's done.
I would agree with that. And as you look back on this, yesterday I said, Greg, that, this was not only a game changer for this franchise, but for this city, because when it's all said and done, we'll look back on this and you've covered this team for a long time. You've known, we go back to the Yuccaneers and the creamsicles and everything. This seemed to, obviously that perception had changed because of the 2002 Super Bowl, but this seemed to take it to a different level. It's like now we went from we're a pretty damn good city to Tampa Bay. We're as good as anybody. He chose us. I mean, the GOAT chose us. And yeah, he chose the Buccaneers, but I'm going to throw everybody in Tampa Bay into it because it's part of the lifestyle. It's everything, right? It's us. He chose us. And it changed the dynamic for everybody and everything, including yourself and myself in terms of our professional careers. It was amazing. What will you reflect on in terms of the entire Brady era?
Yeah, very much the same. I mean, I think that first year, it was such an incredible, I think, you were so dismissive of it at first. Why would Brady come to Tampa? Even if he's leaving the Patriots, it seems so impossible for him to leave New England in the first place. And then if he did, why would he come to Tampa? Tampa has been in the playoffs in 13 years. So yeah, for it to happen. And then, that first year was such a weird year because you had the pandemic, you had everything by Zoom, you're covering games from home sometimes on the road. It was a strange year all around. So you didn't really get the full experience of it. But to have them win and win at home, and then just the sheer joy of the championship, boat parade and all that, that's probably what sticks out the most. I think the last 2 years, getting to have a little bit more in-person interaction with him, podiums back to normal, those kind of things. That's been neat. But yeah, he's completely changed things. Obviously, this has been a really good run for Tampa in general, with everything the Lightning did. Not that Brady had anything to do with that. But
you never know.
This is a city that had this is a city that went a long time without a lot of success, in most sports. So the Lightning obviously got going again before anything started with the Bucs. But it's been neat to see, and I think for the Bucs especially, this kind of resets. Lets them get back to a place where they expect to be good and they expect to be a postseason team until they're not. And that probably wasn't the case for a decent chunk of his career.
Well, here's something interesting. Yesterday we had Brad Johnson on, and you can either get in touch with him and get this quote, or you can use it from my show because you're going to love this quote. I don't know if you heard him say it, but he said, being around Brady was like having Darth Vader in the room, right? You felt his presence. And I went back and I said, that is an awesome quote, right? And it's not in a dark, bad way, but in just that you felt his presence everywhere. And you could speak to this more than just about anybody because you were on the beat there every day. It was that feeling. When I was there, it was that feeling. Brady is here. It's that Darth Vader overall essence of that. Can you speak to that?
Oh yeah. Well, and again, it's one of those where we, for so long, we're kind of, kept at a distance from him. There's not a lot of chit chat and downtime and side talk with Brady. So like this year, it was funny in that they have open locker room 3 days a week, and you got 45 minutes where, locker room's open, but they know it's open locker room. So a lot of there's definitely some people that never go in the locker room during open locker room. And Brady, honestly, was generally that guy for most of this year. And it was like maybe week 17 or 18, and like 3 minutes left in open locker room, kind of walked to his locker and got something and left. And it was like, wow, that was Tom Brady. And then there was another day where like you come out of open locker room and there's like a 30-second walk down the hallway to get back to the media room. And a lot of times you're just, okay, that was good. And you're on your phone and you're adding a quote or tweeting something out. And the one day I did it, I look up and Brady's walking to me. And it's like, we just haven't had that often. So you had that like stammering, like, hey, Tom, like, what do you even say here? Because we haven't had that. We really haven't had that kind of face-to-face thing. So it was neat to get a little bit of that at the end. But for the most part, very measured, very careful in when he talks and how he talks and all those things.
When he walked in the door, did the door slide open? And was there smoke?
Right.
I
did get the Vader presence where, he could have his own Imperial March in the background anytime he, gets on the field. And I think, obviously, for so many people that haven't played with him or haven't covered him as the home team, there's definitely that sense of the evil empire, just somebody who's been so dominant and powerful for so long that I get the parallel.
Yeah, no question. Greg Auman joining us here from Fox Sports, covering Brady and the Bucs for the past 3 years. Kind of a cliche question, but I got to ask it. Was there a moment? What was your moment? Was there a play that kind of brought to you the essence of who Tom Brady is, what he is, how it works on the field, the whole Brady essence? Was there a moment or some key moments?
Yeah, it's funny because like the championship season for me didn't have that many amazing Brady plays. I think probably the closest thing that year was the Scotty Miller touchdown and just throw before halftime that really created some separation. And that probably was that like, wow, they might go to the Super Bowl. That might really happen kind of moment. But honestly, this year, this was a bad year overall. This was a disappointing season. But those end of the game comebacks. The Rams and the Saints and the Panthers and Arizona on Christmas Day. It's like for Fox this year, it's something I hadn't really done at the Athletic and used to do at the Times. But Fox asked for a live gamer, like a buzzer gamer, where you have a story that's ready to go the instant the game ends. And those are great, like in 2020 when they're winning like 38-3 or something like that, and you're posting and you just update the score at the end and punch it. But like there were so many games in the second half of this season where it's 16-3 and you're writing a story about how disappointing it is, and then they score a touchdown. You're like, oh wait, all right, let me kind of write two stories here. And it's absolutely, crazy, frenetic, frazzled deadline writing. But he did that to me like 4 different times this year.
Yes. God, I hate when he does it. No, we love it. Was there a...
No, it's one of those, it's hellish as a writer, but it's really cool to just be reminded of what he's capable of doing in an impossible amount of time.
And Greg, and fans should ask this question, and even I think the most experienced writer and X's and O's analyst would say, what is it? What is it about Brady that he just in those moments, and you witnessed it multiple times, and why couldn't he do that more often during the run of the game? That's especially this season. That was the most just perplexing thing for me, is that you let him go in the 2 minute and it's just like watching Picasso paint, and the rest of the time it's like watching Hunter Biden paint. It's no good. So it's nothing political in that. Just
it was
picking on a bad artist.
It was confounding because again, you saw glimpses so often of what they could be,
right?
But you're
right.
also reminded of who they weren't for so much of those games. And like entire halves where the offense would disappear. So I have to think, looking back, that the easiest way to explain it is just that there were times in 2020 where you just saw the full potential of all that talent on the field together and clicking and working together almost ideally.
Yeah.
And this was one of those years where, for whatever reason, in year 3, with so much of the cast very much the same, it didn't. And it was just, it felt like a collection of talent that wasn't on the same page.
Yeah.
And I think that probably starts with offensive line and Jensen not being there and inexperienced guys being in there. And in just the play there, I think, sent Tom to a place where he didn't really allow time for the offense to develop. And I mean that both like in individual plays and series and drives. And it just felt like so much of his priority was getting rid of the ball and surviving to the next play. And if that resulted in 15 screens in a game and ineffective running and not throwing the ball or testing, there were games where they had backup corners and rookie corners, and you'd go in thinking like, well, they're going to target that guy 10 times today downfield, and they didn't at all. And it was weird, but I think some of that was just Brady consciously making it a priority to not let himself get hurt or blindsided or crushed, waiting for a play to develop. And it just came at the expense of so much of what made this offense good.
Yeah, and I think I'll look back in a negative way at that last interception, and I think even watching his reaction, put his head on his helmet, his hands on his helmet, like, what did I just do? Like, that was the worst play of my career. I didn't want to get hit, and I shied away from the hit and didn't even get enough mustard to get it out of the end zone to throw it away. And I think,
go ahead. I was going to say a red zone pick. I mean, he literally didn't have a red zone pick in 3 years here. It's like 100 touchdowns and no interceptions. So to do it when you need it the most, and you can see where where he thought Godwin might have been, but again, it's to me like an end zone throwaway is almost the easiest thing. You don't have to throw it 30 yards to the time. All you got to do is hit a guy in the front row of the stand, and you survive to move on to another play. So for him to kind of lob it in, where it wasn't even like it had to be. Jaron Kearse didn't have to make some amazing leaping toe tap back of the end zone. It just went to him.
Yeah.
And that's what I think, hit you and me like, oh, how did that happen? And how did it happen now in this situation where instead of kind of rallying things back and getting the fans behind you and answering Dallas, it set them back, and they never really got back from it, unfortunately.
Yeah, and if you're playing to not get hit, and I understand why. I mean, he's down 15 pounds. If he gets hit, the season's over. I mean, if he gets hurt, it's over. So I understand the self-preservation, but I think in the end he realized you just can't play quarterback in the NFL that way. And it's time, and it's time. If you can't do that, then you got to go. So where do the Bucs go from here, Greg? I know this is a big question. We only got a couple minutes left, but is it? I see two avenues: the total tear it down to the studs, rebuild, trade every asset you have, and start over. Or you go, you try to work that salary cap again, and you bring in an experienced quarterback, maybe a David Carr, maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo, and you try and rebuild. You still got some great weapons in Evans and Godwin, and hopefully Gage comes back. I think Rachaad White's a hell of a player. You got a new OC, so I think everybody's going to be on the same page. Clearly, they weren't last year. I think there's a lot of hope there. And you can certainly win the NFC South. Is that good enough to win a Super Bowl? I don't know, but let's go. Or it's tear it down to the studs. Which way do you think the Bucs go?
I don't think they burn the field. I don't think they scrap it. I think this is, both Bowles trying to keep his job, and so many guys that came here under Brady with the expectations of winning playoff games and winning championships, that to do that, even if you got rid of a bunch, to do that to the guys that are left is really not a cool thing to do. So they won't be able to keep everybody. They won't. I don't think they'll go to the very end of borrowing every dollar from the future that they did in recent years just to keep everyone. But I think they'll line themselves up to be a competitive team in a bad division, and that's not even asking that much. Quarterback, I don't think it can be any of these pie in the sky, Lamar Jackson or even Derek Carr seems a little bit too expensive. That's a $40 million quarterback, and they just don't have room for him. But I do think Garoppolo is probably the high end of what they might bring in. I think they'll bring in somebody who's started and won in this league as a more proven option to challenge Kyle Trask and maybe even go ahead of Kyle Trask. I think Trask will have a chance to win the job. But even a guy like a Jacoby Brissett is such an unsexy name to have immediately after Tom Brady. But a guy that has starter, has won in this league and would be within their budget. I mean, you think about an $8 to $10 million type thing.
Yeah.
That's just going to give you a plan B if Trask isn't ready, that kind of thing.
All right, Greg, great stuff, man. I really appreciate your time. As always, you can reach Greg at Greg Auman on Twitter. He is the best follow, and if you're a Bucs fan, it's a must follow. So thank you, Greg. Appreciate your time, as always. Been a great season, and look forward to your coverage in the offseason, too. This is going to be fun and busy.
Oh, yeah. You guys take it easy. Thanks again.
Thanks. All right, Greg Auman there. Sorry for the delay, but we got him on. And next up is our good friend Scott Carter, and let's hope we get his audio. What's up, Scott? How are you? You there?
JP, you hear me?
Yes, I'm by myself today. Nick is on his bachelor party, so I'm pushing the buttons. Had a little trouble with Greg Auman earlier, and complete fright over me. But I got you, so I'm very. It's amazing when technology works, isn't it? It's fantastic.
I've been there before, believe me. Yes. So.
Yeah. So we want to get you on. I know you got limited time here. You got to go at 10:30, but yesterday I was reading the quotes from Billy Napier, and it just kind of struck me that, he is really kind of the poster child for what NIL is and what it can, the evils of it and the good, right? So I want to get your perspective on that press conference yesterday, because I think it was very, very groundbreaking and telling. Have somebody that's gone through the hell of it and is in the midst of it, with Jaden Rashada, obviously. What was your take on what was said and where we're at right now with NIL vis-a-vis recruiting?
Well, I think, Billy obviously, wasn't going into the details with the Jalen Rashada situation. And, there are some things, I think, because he wasn't officially signed yet, he could stand behind that. But he did talk about the NIL and what an unknown commodity it is right now, JP. It's just this undefined arena that has, in a year and a half since it really went into existence in July of 21, it has become a beast already. And these coaches, I mean, you've been around the game. You know how these coaches are wired, man. They're very focused. They're about being able to control the controllables. How many times have we heard that quote in our lives? Yep. And this is something that no one has control over. No one really knows exactly what you can and can't do. And there's different laws in different states. And there's a lot of bad actors right now trying to get involved. And they're trying to cash in while they think the market's hot off these 18-year-old, 17-year-old kids who haven't done anything in college football. I mean, we don't even know if they're going to be able to crack the lineup, much less become a star. So he talked about that. I mean, he said, look, it's frustrating for everybody. We all know that. And it is a dynamic that we haven't experienced before. I think one of his better quotes was, it's a game we've never played. Yeah. And that's talking about just so many people now who are involved in just recruiting, who beforehand it was the coaches, the parents, the players. And, you kind of felt like you could at least get to know the people involved. Now, there's just all kind of people on the side wanting to get a hand in this. And it's just caused a lot of angst, I think, among coaches.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head here. And we're talking about, especially in Florida, where the collectives, the NIL collectives, cannot be associated with the team or the coaches. In other states, they can. Yeah. Right. So they can really, Nick Saban can control what's going on with his NIL. He knows the people that are working for him. He knows the people that are involved. But because the state of Florida got involved early and created a law, they were trying to, best intentions, right? Yeah. To separate the two, to make it more, quote, fair or more above board. What ends up happening is now you've got all these third parties that are involved that can't be regulated by the coaches or the university, and they're out there making deals for players or supposedly making deals. And from what I've heard, this $13 million deal for Rashada was just, it was promised, but there was no money there. And there's no, it's just a bunch of yahoos out there saying they're signing contracts and nobody knows what the hell's going on. Is that a fair representation?
I think there's some truth to that
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, what it's become. You've had these schools, these athletic departments having to outsource
Yeah.
what Billy Napier calls player acquisition business, and let's face it, that's the lifeblood of college football. I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
you don't get good players, you're not going to have a good team, and guess what? You're not going to be in a job for long if you're a head coach. So now you're outsourcing that to some regard. So yeah, I think the state of Florida, tried to do some things, I think, right. But when other states don't have the same laws and guidelines, I mean, it creates an unfair playing field immediately. And
Right.
we've seen that come about. And now, I know there's a bill recently proposed in Florida to maybe change some of those parameters. But even then, JP, I mean, who's to say that, some of these states don't even have NIL laws on the books yet.
Right.
So, it's just, it's really the goalposts are constantly moving. And basically, until there's some uniformity, until someone takes charge or comes up with a system that's better than what we have today,
Yeah.
there's going to be more stories
Yeah.
like Jalen Rashada. That was just unfortunate for the Gators that they happened to have that spotlight right there. But guess what?
Right.
There's going to be more, and
Yeah.
it's just going to create chaos. And I always go back to the fact it's not really fair to anybody. The kids, the programs, the fans, and fans. I feel bad for them because this is all new for them.
Yeah.
And if you don't develop some kind of system, you're going to lose a lot of their trust, and that's going to hurt the business. So.
And we want it, the fans want to know, well, how much are we paying this guy? Right? They think it's like the NFL. It's like, well, how much are we paying this guy and that guy? And I think there is some, there needs to be some accountability in that way. And the only way I can see to fix this, Scott, is to go to basically a professional model and look exactly at what the NFL is doing and try to replicate that as best you can. I know it's different, and I know obviously there are hurdles, but it is a proven model. It is something I think that everybody is familiar with and can work within those parameters. And I think there are ways to apply it to college football. But the thing is, you have to get everybody under 110, right? And that's not just the SEC. It's all of these major conferences and maybe even some of this, the non-power five, whatever the hell we're calling them now. And I don't know if that's even possible. Is it?
JP, I agree with you. That's there's no other professional sports league that has success like the NFL has. They have a model that works. Obviously, college football, the mission is different, but it's in this era where it's very similar in a lot of ways.
Yes.
But when I agree with, in theory, what you're saying, but having worked on a college campus now for a decade and understanding all the agendas out there and the politics. I mean, you've got Title IX implications.
Great point. Yeah.
You've got so many things involved. So for football to do that, college football, it's almost like, okay, we have to break free of all that.
Exactly.
But then you're still representing the university. So you still have the university part of it. So it's a fascinating dilemma where college sports is. I wish I had the answer. I don't think anybody does, but it's going to have to, hopefully we're going to get to an answer that's solvable, sooner rather than later, because again, I don't know how long you want to be in this era because it's bad.
It's crazy. No, it's absolutely crazy. And then just on the field, how did the Gators do in the end? It looks like they've come up with some good players. Napier's known for recruiting. And, this first season, if you're a Gator fan, you probably want to just throw it out and say, okay, they're building from here. Kind of like with Norvell post-COVID, right? And I know it doesn't look great right now for the Gator fans, but it looked terrible for FSU fans at the beginning of last season, right? And now look where FSU is. It's a totally different ball game, and that's part of the transfer portal, NIL, et cetera. So give the Gator fans a little bit of perspective of what they can hope for next year.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they got overshadowed this class with the Rashada situation and the bad headlines. But I think when you really dissect what they did in this class, I think it's the best recruiting class in a long time. They got 18 blue chip signings. They've got, 10 transfers. I think they really did a great job on retooling the offensive line. And Billy Napier, his way of recruiting is very much like Nick Saban's. I mean, you've got to truly be a piece that fits his big puzzle it doesn't matter if you're 5-star or 3-star. You've got to fit that puzzle exactly the way he envisions,
Mm-hmm.
or you're not going to fit. So he's getting these pieces that I think, really starting to fit and make sense. And again, we never know about these classes until down the road. But I think on paper, this is a really good class. And I think Gator fans should be excited that this was a good step in the right direction for what he's trying to do in the program. I think, you got 31 new guys on the team right now, JP, since that Las Vegas ball. I mean, that's a lot of
Third of the roster
blood over just a couple of months. So, the guys that people are going to talk about, Graham Mertz, the quarterback from Wisconsin, experienced guy. Nothing's going to catch him by surprise. So he's going to add some stability there, I think. But the offensive line, the Damian George Jr. from Alabama, the transfer, I really like him. They picked up the kid Keontae Goodwin, who former 5-star, instantly becomes the highest rated prospect on their roster in terms of his ranking coming out of high school.
Yep.
So I think they did really well there. And they added some pieces on defense. Kelby Collins, the kid from Alabama, who Alabama really wanted, he came in, and I think you're going to see him play as a true freshman. So again, big picture, I think they filled a lot of needs. I think they've got more of a roster that Billy Napier envisions for his program. And, you start putting all those together. I mean, he only knows what his vision is. I mean, it's his program. Right. So you have to say, okay, right now he's adding some pieces he likes. Now we'll get to see how it plays on the field. But you got 17 of these guys are mid-year enrollees. That's huge for development and get them acclimated before the season.
Yeah, get them in spring practice. And forgive me, I know there's a couple of big kids from Tampa Bay that they signed earlier. If you off the top of your head,
Eugene Wilson, the receiver from Gaither, man, I like him a lot. I think he might be the most upside of a playmaker that they signed in terms of making plays after he catches the ball, really good in space. So he's one of the 4 guys who are not mid-year enrollees, but he won the Guy Toff Award down in Tampa, which you're familiar with, Hillsborough County's Heisman. So he's a talent. Andy Jean, another receiver from Miami Northwestern, but you're asking Tampa. The other one, Dijon Johnson, the cornerback out of Wharton.
Yeah.
They like him a lot, physical guy. So they're going to continue. I mean, for the Gators to have success the way they have historically, they always have to get players out of Tampa.
Yeah,
Tampa
absolutely.
Bay area. And that's something that they've worked on. And so those are a couple of the names that stand out right now, JP.
Great stuff, Scotty. I know you got a busy day ahead of you. Thanks so much for shedding some light on all those topics. Appreciate it, my friend. You can find Scott's work at floridagators.com. Great stuff right there. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
All right, JP, have a good day.
All right, you too. Scott Carter there. All right. Yeah, interesting stuff there. I read with very, very much interest what Billy Napier was saying, and he didn't want to get into the specifics, as Scott said, but when you look at this NIL situation, it is, calling it the Wild Wild West is maybe underselling it right now, because you've got a lot of unsavory characters that are involved in this. And, they're basically agents, right? They're agents now that are coming into high schools and talking to the parents and talking to the players and trying to get them to sign up with them to get their NIL deals. Obviously taking a percentage of the NIL deals. There's so many new things out there, and everybody's trying to get their hands in the money, right? Where's the money? How do they get control of it? So it's crazy out there. And I think you're looking at some programs that are having some great success in the portal. I look at Florida State with that. USC obviously did a great job in the portal. And it has pluses and minuses, but the big plus is you can turn around a program in 1 year. I mean, FSU went from losing to Jacksonville State to being on the cusp of making the playoff. I mean, they were 1 win away from being in that conversation in some very close games. So that's how quickly it can change. And I think that's good for that part of it. I think is good for college football. The blue bloods will always be good. But I think now we're getting into an era where guys, can move around and really affect change. USC can go from, kind of an also ran to being in the national championship conversation. Look at what happened at Tulane, for God's sakes. I mean, Tulane was at Cotton Bowl. I mean, and you can go in and get transfers and NIL money. You get one rich booster wants to throw around some money at Tulane or wherever, and suddenly they become a power. When's that happen at a USF, by the way? And USF, Alex Golesh got some good players. You got some transfers coming in. It'll be very interesting to see what he does in year one, and in a conference that is going to be very, very winnable now. So there should be some optimism there with a new coach and a guy who put together one of the most explosive offenses in college football at Tennessee and made Hendon Hooker a Heisman Trophy candidate. So can he do that to a host of pretty good quarterbacks at USF? There's some kids with talent there. Now they've lost all their receivers, so through the portal, and that's the bad part of it. So, bad programs, they can go either way. You get that charismatic person at the top of the leadership chain as the head coach, and look what happened. What's happening in Colorado with Deion Sanders? That was a 1-11 football team, and they've got talent now that's probably equally as good as most of the teams in the Pac-12 and maybe some of the better teams. So how fast will that happen at Colorado for Deion using the portal and NIL money? So college football has changed dramatically, but I still believe that there has to be a day of reckoning with this NIL. And to me, the only way that happens is there is some type of collective that comes together, much like the NCAA, but much better than the NCAA. I reimagine this as more of power conferences coming together. We're going to take a break. I'm going to come back and tell you a little bit about where I think it should go. Get into a couple other recruiting notes from USF, but we haven't hit a break, so we got to do that, and hopefully I can do so as this day goes on. Yeah, the technology part of this is going to be fun, so there we go. All right, we will be back. Casey Hudson's going to join me in the 11 o'clock hour, and we're going to talk all things Bucs and Bolts, head down to the NHL All-Star game that she's covering. So we will do that when we come back. JP here for the Jeeves Law Group. I've known Scott Jeeves for quite some time, and he's just like us, a huge college football fan. He loves his Gators. In fact, he sponsors our Gator Report every Thursday at 11 o'clock with Scott Carter from FloridaGators.com. But he's not just another PI attorney. He is a ferocious advocate for his clients. Scott Jeeves is a board-certified civil trial lawyer and a certified circuit court mediator practicing in Tampa Bay for over 30 years. He is an AV preeminent rated civil trial lawyer and certified circuit court mediator. Folks, these designations are not just given out. They're given only to the best trial attorneys. But more than anything, Scott takes these cases personally. I've heard it from his clients. He's a fighter you want on your side. Insurance companies hate it when they see you're represented by Jeeves. He's just different. 727-894-2929 or go to JeevesLawGroup.com. That's JEEVES lawgroup.com and tell them JP sent you. Now is the time to make sure your home insurance is in order. In the last year, many of us have made improvements to our homes. So call the folks at Italiano and discuss these upgrades to make sure you have enough coverage. According to a recent report, almost 64% of homeowners don't have enough insurance on their home, which is their most valuable asset. Also, a great time to make sure you have flood insurance. Even if your mortgage company does not require flood insurance, your home could still be at flood risk. Another big item as we enter hurricane season is making sure your pool enclosure is added to your policy and there will be no issue at claim time. That happens a lot. So call your friendly agent at Italiano Insurance to review your policies today. 813-877-7799 or ItalianoInsurance.com. Attention, if you are home shopping or looking for a refinance, and even if you already have the approval letter, you must call my man Scott Fitzgerald at American Mortgage Services. Scott has a brand new program available in the greater Tampa Bay area called the Community Advantage Loan Program. Get this, no money down, no mortgage insurance, no points, no origination fee, purchase or refinance, and loan amounts up to $647,000. Now, there are some application requirements. It must be a single-family home, one unit, primary residence, and have a minimum 640 credit score. The program only applies to certain neighborhoods, so you have to call to find out if you qualify. So call Scott Fitzgerald at 813-294-7595 or email him at scott@amstampa.com. Now, even if you don't qualify for that program, Scott will shop your loan around, get you the best rates, and won't charge you the huge upfront fees. And if you've had issues with your bank calling you back, Scott will return calls immediately or at least the same day. 813-294-7595, or email him, scott@amstampa.com. Scott Fitzgerald, MLS 386722, American Mortgage Services, 1000 North Ashley Drive, Suite 1020, Tampa, Florida. Hey, folks, it's still engagement season, and where better to get that special ring than the Gold and Diamond Source? The Gold and Diamond Source has the largest selection of engagement rings in the country, a literal jewelry supercenter with 30 times the inventory of any normal jeweler. You don't have to wait to spend any extra time waiting for them to bring something in. They have everything right there in-house, so why go anywhere else? And you can get up to 15% off this January if you buy something with the birthstone, which is garnet. Garnet and Gold, Florida State, get something for your favorite Seminole. And let's not forget the Emily collection from Emily Johnson Weintraub. Very affordable, real gold and diamond jewelry, always stylish and unique. Emily has created this fashion-forward gold, diamond, and gemstone jewelry line ideal for everyday wear. Each piece is designed to enhance your look by featuring eye-catching, modern, geometrical shapes. Really unique stuff. Got to check it out. And, of course, Julie and Steve Weintraub, great benefactors here in the local community. So let's keep it local. And you can get 0% financing for up to 5 years. Get a big ring for a little price. It's the Golden Diamond Source, 3800 Olmerton Road, always online at thegoldendiamondsource.com.
Coming back at you.
Now, more with JP on FanStream Sports.
It's only just begun.
All right, welcome back to the JP Peterson Show on this Thursday, as I'm riding solo here and looking for my correct layout. There we go. It's like watching a child try to work an iPad for the first time. There's a lot of different things going on here, folks. It's hard to do the talking and the punching of buttons at the same time. So we're doing our best here today. And our thanks to our sponsors, including the Valspar Championship, which is coming up on the 16th to the 19th in March. And they are going to have another great field. Jordan Spieth has joined for the first time in 5 years. Of course, Sam Burns is coming back, and we'll start getting more announcements as we get closer to the date. But there's always a great field out there, but more than that, it's a tremendous social event. So, and the good stuff is going to sell out rather quickly. They have a new premium edition called the Rooftop, which is going to be on the roof, oddly enough, of the luxury boxes on 18. So, and they're going to do a lot of different things. They're going to bring a lot of celebrities up there throughout the week. You'll see Rondé Barber. You might see radio host or two. There'll be probably some Lightning players out there. A lot of spring training guys are coming in. So Rondé's cultivating all his friends. Rondé's the chairman out there, so cultivating all his friends and buddies, and going to drag them up there to kind of hang out with everybody. So that's going to be cool. That's the Rooftop badge. They have the Snake Pit badge, which is obviously, if you haven't been out there, it's a bunch of different VIP tents where you can go in and get. They'll have one with a tequila theme and one with a beer theme, craft beer theme, and different stuff. High-end food, drinks, liquor, all included. The Hooters Owl's Nest is always a great place to hang out. They have beer and chicken wings there. So many great options, but most of them will sell out. That's what's happened in the last few years because it's become so popular. Don't forget Saturday night, we got Darius Rucker is going to come in and do the concert on the green, which is over there on the one of the driving ranges there. Really, really cool setup. So you don't want to miss any of it. The weather's going to be great, as it always is in March, and it's a tremendous social event. So get your tickets now at valsparchampionship.com. Did not want to ignore you guys that are in the chat room here today. Mark Davis. We thank you. The Chris Thomas line, yes, we had earlier in the show. So I want to talk a little bit more about the NIL situation, and in talking to some former administrators in college that have been athletic directors at different places, major colleges. They have the same thoughts that, and you heard Scott Carter mention Title IX. Title IX is, basically says you have to spend as much on the non-revenue sports as you do on football and basketball, the revenue sports. And that's why, the big money that football and basketball brings in pays for all the other sports. And there's, maybe not equal expenditures as there is equal opportunity, right? So as many scholarship athletes for women and the non-revenue sports as there are for men. And this has obviously given rise to an incredible amount of opportunity to female athletes that has just been tremendous. And it's been a great thing. So what you would have to do basically is take the football and basketball programs out of the university control of the athletic department. So make them basically booster organizations. And, there are some lawyers and such, and I've read articles about this on how you can do this from a legal standpoint and not affect Title IX. And there's a lot of people that say there will be challenges to this, but the overriding thing here is you have to have the revenue pay for these other sports. So you could take football and basketball out of these athletic departments and they wouldn't be then, quote, subject to Title IX, and then take the money that they generate and give it back to the university, the way it's done now. But this would allow the football and basketball operations to really, become professional leagues, which they are anyway. That's the whole secret about this whole thing. And the court decided that in the Northwestern case. They said basically you are treated as full-time employees and professional athletes. That's more more accurate, the way you are treated as instead of a student athlete, right? They're professional players. The way their time is constructed, the way they have to give their time, the way their time is controlled, et cetera, everything except getting paid, right? But now through the NIL, they're getting paid. So you take these entities out of that department and you can run them like you would run an NFL football team. Have a salary cap, have, NIL deals, have money coming in. The money's already coming in. So you just take that money as they do in the NFL football and collectively bargain. The players can collectively bargain for rights just like the NFL players have. You would have free agency. You would have all these things just like they do in the NFL. And I know, college people say, oh, how can you do that? That would, then it's professional football. It's already professional football. And with NIL, it's completely unregulated now. So this, you're going to lose what you love in college football unless you control what's going on. And this, to me, is the only way to do it. It's a proven model. It works. Now, of course, they have the draft. Recruiting would have to be separate from that, and it would be open. You wouldn't have to, teams wouldn't be able to draft, but there still would be scholarship numbers. There would be a certain amount of NIL money that you can give to each team, and et cetera, et cetera. How you would, and I think instead of an individual contract situation, you would probably have just slotting of payment, right? It would be, $150,000 a year, $75,000 a year for each scholarship player. Now, none of this is perfect, right? None of it will be perfect, and you can poke holes in all of it. But what you have now is an absolute abject disaster. There's no control over anything, and players are going to get swindled. Coaches are going to get swindled. This Jalen Rashada thing is going to be the norm. Is that what you want in college football? Nobody wants that. So there's got to be some structure. For this money. There's got to be some type of way to control it. But first and foremost, finally, we're going to pay the players what they're worth. We're going to start paying the labor, and they are the ones that have produced this. They are the ones that have put their bodies on the line to produce all this revenue for the game that we love in terms of football, right? And in basketball, by the way, you're going to have guys staying for 3 and 4 years already getting paid. It's going to be like the G League is for the NBA. And it's going to make college basketball dramatically better than it is now. Instead of all the best players just going to the G League, which is what's starting to happen, right? Then you'll get them back on campus and they can stay and develop their games and then move on to the NBA, like the golden age of NCAA basketball was in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s until, the best players just started leaving and we're one and done. There was a time when the best players stayed in college like 3-4 years. And it was tremendous for college basketball. And it was better for the NBA too, because you got so many young players going to the NBA who sit the bench or just wash out, who could be playing it, in college in front of full stadiums and the whole nine. So I think it has a lot of benefit to it. And somebody has to do this at some point, because what's going on now is unsustainable in college football. Certainly it's the same in college basketball. And the hard part about this is you have the have and the have-nots. You have the Alabamas and the Floridas and the SECs of the world that are making, their annual payments to their universities now are up in the 70, 80, 90 million dollars. The Big Ten is going the same way. And it's not even among all these conferences. So it's very hard for other teams to compete, right? So, but in order to get the big time players to be in a collective, for Alabama to get the same as Iowa State is not something that Nick Saban is really interested in, or the SEC is really interested in, right? They're just trying to grab all that they can grab. They don't want to cede some of their money to these smaller universities. But if you want the sport to survive, in my mind, you have to do this, or you're going to end up with certain systems in certain conferences, because eventually the conferences want everybody to be equal, right? So why not just get the whole collective together? And you can have the top 110 teams or 96 teams, 6 teams, 6 conferences, 16 teams, whatever you want to do, and then those fringe universities go into a relegation conference, so to speak, and whoever wins the top 4 of those gets into the playoff of those. They relegate and get into the bigger conferences, and those smaller schools can swap out, and that will become just an incredible situation for those schools. So there's a lot of good that can come of this, but more than anything, you got to get people that are, for the common good of all of college football and all college athletics to come together. And as greedy as these conferences are and administrators are, nobody wants to give up what they have to join a collective, right? And give back to some of these smaller schools. But in order for it to survive, I think that's what has to happen. So we'll see if it does. In some shape or form, it needs to happen. No question about that. All right, we'll take another break. We'll come back in a little set. Casey Hexton's going to join me at 11 o'clock, and we will we'll talk some Bolts from down in Miami, where she is, or Sunrise, where the NHL All-Star Game is taking place. A few Lightning players down there, so we'll get her take. Coming up next, a little bit more on recruiting and a little bit more on the Brady situation, on where the Bucs go from here. I have some thoughts on that, so stay with us. Was your car totaled in an accident? Did your insurance company use Kelley Blue Book or NADA to appraise the value of your car? Chances are they didn't, and you got shorted maybe thousands of dollars. Call the Jeeves Law Group for a free case evaluation, because your insurance company may still owe you money. 727-894-2929. It's a free call, so why not find out if you have a case? Insurance companies have been running this scam for a while, and most folks don't know if they've been shorted. Trust me. Scott Jeeves is a different kind of attorney, the kind insurance companies hate to go up against. He could recover thousands of dollars, so why not call 727-894-2929 or go to JeevesLawGroup.com. That's JEEVES lawgroup.com, and tell them JP sent you. JP here for Emerging Investigations, Tampa Bay's premier investigation agency. Do you suspect your spouse is cheating or involved in a divorce, that your spouse is hiding money, an ex-employee or current employee with suspicious behavior? Is there a criminal matter you need help with? If you need information you can count on, using the professionals at Emerging Investigations is a slam dunk. Emerging Investigations is a licensed and insured private investigation agency, family-owned. Emerging is your ideal resource to secure evidence and validation, allowing you to make informed decisions in life's biggest matters. Led by industry executive Brian D'Antonio, Emerging possesses the experience and resources to get needed results. Emerging Investigations maintains an excellent reputation as a premier investigation agency. They are known for results. You're not just hiring a PI, but an organized, dedicated team using state-of-the-art technology. Their proven investigative methods produce crucial information used in criminal cases, insurance fraud, and personal injury claims. Many local attorneys, industry agencies, and your concerned neighbors all count on Emerging Investigations. Just go to their website, emerginginv.com, or call 813-291-FACT. That's 813-291-FACT-3228. Get results you can trust in life's biggest matters. Emerging Investigations. Well, it's that time of year to renew or shop your health insurance provider, and you can get great health insurance for $20, $30, $50 a month. Just call 888-325-0605 to help navigate the health insurance marketplace. 1 out of 3 people in Florida are uncovered because they think they can't afford it. Not true. I made the call a couple of years ago, and they helped me get Blue Cross Blue Shield coverage, Florida Blue, for just $20 a month. Last year, it went up to $49. Oh, well. It all depends on your income and your family situation. It's a free call, 888-325-0605. They will ask for some income information. So if you have your tax returns available, that will be great, but you don't need it. They'll just answer some simple questions, and the highly trained reps will do the work for you to find out what your subsidy will be. 888-325-0605. And if you have a plan through your employer, you may be able to get it cheaper. It's a free call, so find out, folks. This has been a lifesaver for me and saved me thousands of dollars over the last few years, and you can choose your plan. It's a no-brainer. Find out. Make the free call, 888-325-0605. Get covered like me and thousands of others, 888-325-0605. The PGA Tour's Valspar Championship returns this March 16th to the 19th with 4 days of golf action plus the host of fun activities that make it Tampa Bay's hottest spring sports ticket. Sam Burns, who won in a thrilling playoff last year, is looking to make it 3 wins in a row on the Copperhead course at Innisbrook Resort. He will be challenged by a top field that includes Jordan Spieth, returning for the first time in 5 years. The 2015 Valspar champ counts 13 PGA Tour victories, including 3 majors in his career. It will be a great field and great fun. Tickets are on sale now at ValsparChampionship.com for all tournament days, both grounds tickets and premium ticket options. You don't want to miss the 2023 Valspar Championship.
Let's go! Right now, back to the show with JP on FanStream Sports.
All right, welcome back to the JP Peterson Show, brought to you by the great folks at Bay Area Modern Medical Center, BAMMC.com. Chris Lugo and his team over there will get you right if you're looking for testosterone replacement therapy or if you're looking for to lose weight, all things that they do over there, and they will personalize an approach for you. It's not one of these one-size-fits-all places, chiropractors and other places for weight loss. Go to someone who knows what he's doing, has a lot of different degrees in nutrition, has a lot of great experience. You can hear him every Monday at 11:45. He comes on with us, gives us health tips, nutrition tips, all kinds of great stuff. We talk about the injuries to significant athletes. So check it out, 11:45, Bay Area Modern Medical Center. Chris Lugo joins us each and every Monday. Great conversation. You'll get to know him, and then you're like, you know what? I want that guy to be my primary care doctor. Really, really smart dude, and very forward thinking. There's, in the health industry right now, you want to find somebody you can trust and is forward thinking. And that's Chris Lugo. So get in touch with them at BAMMC.com. A couple quick things here as we move on from Tom Brady's announcement yesterday, and Casey Hudson's going to join us in a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I heard, been looking around a little bit at what's next, and who the OC is going to be is obviously a huge question mark here. And without Brady coming, I'm not sure Todd Monken wants to get into this situation, because I think he'll have better situations, better opportunities around the league. But because we clearly just don't know who the quarterback is here. He's been talking to the Ravens. You know who the quarterback is there. Good, by the way, Lamar Jackson. So, yeah, it's a situation where if it's Todd Monken and he's worked with who? Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. Is that something you guys are interested in, Buck fans? A little Baker Mayfield coming here to play with these guys. My first reaction is no, thank you. But what are the alternatives? Kyle Trask, Blaine Gabbert. I mean, the one thing we could say about Mayfield is he can move. He's got talent. He was successful in that offense with Todd Monken. They went to the playoffs. So is that something that Buck fans would be interested? I think we'd have mixed reviews on that, to be sure. Is Derek Carr a guy that you can shoehorn in this salary cap situation? He will probably have a new home. And if it's a trade, what kind of compensation are you giving up? Is it Jimmy Garoppolo who comes here and runs this offense? And who is the coordinator going to be? There's a lot of question marks and a lot of things that have to be decided. For me, I think, you look at, or do you tear it down to the studs and sell off all of your assets that are not going to be around to help you in 2 to 3 years when you might be competitive again? That's an approach I think that is workable, but you're going to go through a lot of pain. No question about that. And you look at what the Eagles have done. I mean, they didn't tear it down to the studs. They took the remaining pieces that they had from their Super Bowl team, and I think there's 5 to 7 players left from that team that are still there. But it's the Kelseys, it's some of the real rocks along the offensive and defensive lines that you need moving forward. And to me, that's where the Bucs should go. You have too much talent here right now to not give these guys, the Mike Evanses of the world, the Chris Godwins of the world, even Ryan Jensen. These guys came here to win. And you still have a good core of players here that can win. And with this division, the way it is right now. To tear it down to the studs, I think is a little foolhardy, because you can take this core and bring in an experienced quarterback and win this division. You might be able to do it with Kyle Trask or Blaine Gabbert. I don't know. These are all decisions that they're going to have to make that are probably be based off who the offensive coordinator is and where they want to go with this offense. But they need some talent acquisition. There's no question about that. There are lots of holes that they need to fill. They need to get younger, and they need to get faster, and they need to get nastier, especially on the defensive side. So we're going to hit all that. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Casey Hudson's going to join us, and she's going to stay with me for the whole hour. She will co-host for the second hour with me. So be great to hear a new voice, and she's down at the All-Star game, so we'll catch up with what's going on with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So quick break. We'll be back. Casey Hudson will join us, and we'll get into all things Bucs and Bolts. Stay with us. JP here for Italiano Insurance. If you've started a side hustle during COVID and the business has grown, well, you need business insurance, because if you get sued, you could lose all your personal wealth if you're not properly protected. That's right. Your home, your savings, everything could go. So get protected now. Call the great agents at Italiano Insurance, 813-877-7799, and a real human will answer the phone and get you protected. If you haven't shopped your business insurance in a while, you could be overpaying by thousands. One customer had their golf buddy handling his business insurance, then called Italiano to shop it around, and they saved him $26,000 a year. Yeah, so call 813-877-7799 or go to ItalianoInsurance.com. Italiano Insurance, protecting all the pieces of your life for over 60 years. The boys are back. The PGA Tour's Valspar Championship returns March 16th to the 19th with 4 days of incredible golf plus a host of activities that make it Tampa Bay's hottest spring sports ticket. There is more to the Valspar than just great golf. It's the Hooters Owl's Nest, the Snake Pit Club, accessible by premium tickets, and other great venues throughout the course for those with ground tickets. And new in 2023 is the Rooftop, a new prestigious venue at the 18th green with music, food, and fun. Plus, you never know who you're going to see at the Rooftop. Tickets are on sale now at ValsparChampionship.com for all tournament days, both grounds tickets and premium ticket options. You don't want to miss the 2023 Valspar Championship. Attention, if you are home shopping or looking for a refinance, and even if you already have the approval letter, you must call my man Scott Fitzgerald at American Mortgage Services. Scott has a brand new program available in the greater Tampa Bay area called the Community Advantage Loan Program. Get this, no money down, no mortgage insurance, no points, no origination fee, purchase or refinance, and loan amounts up to $647,000. Now, there are some application requirements. It must be a single-family home, 1 unit, primary residence, and have a minimum 640 credit score. The program only applies to certain neighborhoods, so you have to call to find out if you qualify. So call Scott Fitzgerald at 813-294-7595 or email him at scott@amstampa.com. Now, even if you don't qualify for that program, Scott will shop your loan around, get you the best rates, and won't charge you the huge upfront fees. And if you've had issues with your bank calling you back, Scott will return calls immediately, or at least the same day. 813-294-7595 or email him, scott@amstampa.com. Scott Fitzgerald, MLS 386722, American Mortgage Services, 1000 North Ashley Drive, Suite 1020, Tampa, Florida. Hey, folks, it's still engagement season, and where better to get that special ring than the Gold and Diamond Source. The Gold and Diamond Source has the largest selection of engagement rings in the country, a literal jewelry supercenter with 30 times the inventory of any normal jeweler. You don't have to wait to spend any extra time waiting for them to bring something in. They have everything right there in-house, so why go anywhere else? And you can get up to 15% off this January if you buy something with the birthstone, which is garnet. Garnet and gold, Florida State, get something for your favorite Seminole. And let's not forget the Emily collection from Emily Johnson Weintraub. Very affordable, real gold and diamond jewelry, always stylish and unique. Emily has created this fashion-forward gold, diamond, and gemstone jewelry line ideal for everyday wear. Each piece is designed to enhance your look by featuring eye-catching, modern, geometrical shapes. Really unique stuff. Got to check it out. And, of course, Julie and Steve Weintraub, great benefactors here in the local community. So let's keep it local. And you can get 0% financing for up to 5 years. Get a big ring for a little price. It's the Golden Diamond Source, 3800 Olmerton Road, always online at thegoldendiamondsource.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's rock.
This is FanStream Sports with JP.
All right, welcome back to the JP Peterson Show, brought to you by the great folks at Bay Area Modern Medical Center and the Jeeves Law Group. I want to welcome in our good friend Casey Hudson, covers the Bucs and the Bolts and everything else in sports. Joining us from, wow, it looks like you got a beautiful room there down in All-Star Game. How are you, Casey?
I'm so good. I drove in late last night because I had 100 things to do, and I'm a terrible packer. My parents have got that one correct. So I was just not able to capitalize on my time properly. So I strolled into Fort Lauderdale almost 10 o'clock last night, woke up this morning, tried to get situated, and now I'm here hanging with you, JP.
My old stomping grounds. I grew up down there in Hollywood in Fort Lauderdale. It was a much
Did you
different place
play?
back then. Oh yeah, it was a much different. Well, there wasn't the arena there. It wasn't it was the old
Oh,
Sunrise Musical Theater was there where I once saw U2 play, and I think their first or second tour. And I know
rub
you're a
that
big
in.
music fan. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
that's why I'm like, rub that one in.
literally one of my greatest memories at the Sunrise Musical Theater, which was a venue of about 5,000-6,000, was Bono coming off stage without a microphone, going out into the middle of the crowd and just standing. I think he was singing Streets with No Name, and Edge was just killing the guitar. And I'm like, and he's singing without a microphone. And it was just like, oh my, what am I watching this? Who are these people? These kids, and they were just, I was like, I think they're going to be pretty good. I think they have a future. I'm not sure, but I think they have a future.
A
So
massive one.
yeah, great memories down there. I've never even been to that arena. And
I
I don't hear
haven't
I don't hear
either.
good things. I don't hear good things. By the way, I can't believe they're having an All-Star game down there.
I hear that their fans just like to show up here and drink. I have a couple friends that grew up here. I was born in Miami, actually. So before my parents got
Oh,
situated
cool.
in Tampa, when my dad retired,
Yeah,
this was the stomping ground and stuff. But I mean, it was this and then Panama City Beach, and then we finally ended up in Tampa. So haven't seen the arena. Excited to see it, but also very
mhm.
nervous because every fan that I know that goes to Panthers games is like, I'm just there for the alcohol, and they give like really massive deals to get their fans in the doors. So nothing
I
against the
love it.
Panthers, but we'll see how that all plays out. But love the
Um,
U2 story.
yeah. Now, before we get into talking some Bolts and All-Star game, obviously the big news yesterday of Brady retiring. It didn't
Mhm.
shock me, because we watched everything go down this year. It wasn't pretty, and I think that
Mhm.
that last interception was the moment where Brady probably said, if I can't play football this way. I can't be afraid to get hit. I can't be afraid to
Yeah.
cause any contact and to throw a pick in that situation because I'm trying not to get hit, which is, that's what happened.
Mhm.
I think that was probably the final nail in the coffin. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you saw how he reacted when he did get hit. You saw that even though every single game, it's not like there was this immense amount of sacks that were being laid on him. It took him
Right.
longer to get up. He was a lot more frustrated. He was reactive to his offensive line. And he's fully aware, as the captain of that team, what his offensive line was going through. It wasn't really looking like there was an upside to it either. And my personal opinion, that's going to be one of the biggest focal points to rebuild because you relied so heavily on third and fourth string linemen. So I think it's just the fact that he didn't want to put himself through that anymore. He had to take responsibility to where he wasn't able to kind of play in the same form that he'd played for the last 2, 3 years or even last year. And while a lot of it seemed like off the field situations, I think it was just his body, his time, all of that. I also think that when he went to start going to pick up his kids from school in Miami and do all those things, I think the reality kicked in that being in a relationship, being married and managing your family while managing a chaotic career is way different than doing it separated or divorced. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna jump through many more hoops to get your kids to you and to get that quality time. And doing that during a season is gonna be borderline impossible. So I think that was also huge reality on top of his play this season.
I couldn't agree more with you because we know how important his family is to him and his kids are. If you've watched any of the Tom versus Time or The Man in the Arena, he's constantly talking about this. And it's almost like a ghost that haunts him, right? Because he looks at how
Yeah.
his parents and his dad, put their entire life into his life, right? Worked out pretty good.
Mhm.
And he wants to be that same type of father. He wants to replicate that with his kids. And as you said, being an NFL quarterback is hard enough. Being Tom Brady, I mean, yes, you have all the accoutrement that comes with billions of dollars or millions of dollars that you can do, but it's still time is time, right? You can't buy time. And I think he realizes that to be the dad that he wants to be, he can't do both. And this is a
Yeah.
very, very important time for those kids. You look at their ages, and as a father, I know that. I had the opportunity to move away when I got divorced. My kids were 10 and 6, and I was like, that's not happening, because that's what happened to me. And I think Tom feels that same pull. That's such a formative time for these kids, and he just wants to be part of their life, and he has this opportunity to do it in such an amazing way, right? To be able to work on
Absolutely.
Fox or whatever he's going to do and still be Tom Brady. It's not like he's got nothing to do, right?
Yeah, and I think that for some reason I just feel like that was the biggest pull. His posts over the last week have just been so much more emotional. We've seen his kids on his social
Yes.
media more than we have, honestly, majority of his career or majority of his social media career. So that was very telling for me. It was also, a lot of the quotes in terms of watching your kids grow up and stuff. So as
Yeah.
you said, it's a tough balance as is, and to do that when you have to fly your kids into you and this, and we don't know where she plans on building her next chapter of her life, but that
Right.
just makes it that much more complicated. And his oldest son, it's time for him to start focusing on if he wants to play football or baseball or what he wants to do, and he can't do that with his dad one foot in and one foot out. So
Right.
even as a military brat, that was
Yeah.
hard for me. I was a competitive gymnast, and it was like I wanted my dad there, but he had to be gone, and the juggle that we had to do with that. So I just saw a more emotional side to Tom Brady in this downtime, and it wasn't even in relation really to football. It was just more so his family, his kids, so specifically. So that's where I was kind of like, I had a feeling he wasn't coming back.
Right.
I wasn't sure if it was going to be retirement, but I was just like, I don't think Tampa's the spot. I think he needs to do something that's going to either be more convenient for his family, and why not have fun for one more go around, try something different, and then go, because this season ended terribly,
Yeah.
honestly.
Well, the whole
So
season was bad.
the whole season was bad. Yeah. So like the standard to make it that much better wasn't that far off. So Miami could
Right.
have been a great option. Niners could have been a great option, being closer to his family. He had so many better options than staying in Tampa Bay and the rebuild that they have to do. I know everyone wants to avoid that conversation, but that's what has to be done. They have to think of the next 3, 5, 8 years here. They cannot build a team around Tom Brady for another season.
I was of the thought that Miami or Tampa was the best spot, and then something happened to Miami over the last week or so that kind of took them out of the running. And I don't think it was just Tua, by the way. Maybe the league came in and said, "Look, you tampered with him. You ain't going to get him. We're not going to let
Yeah,
that
well,
happen." So,
you can't have recycling news lines that create so
right,
much issues these days.
exactly. So I think that
Mhm.
was I never thought San Francisco or the Raiders was an option because of his kids. He wasn't going to move away from his kids. So I think
Too far.
early in this week it came down to Tampa or retire. And I think he probably looked at the Tampa Bay situation and said, "Is it really going to be that much different than this past year?" And I don't even know who the offensive coordinator is going to be. It could have been different, and you can paint some scenarios that would have been more positive for him. Line gets better, Godwin's healthier, add some more speed, blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is you're limited with Brady. He can't
Yeah.
move. He doesn't want to take a hit. He can't take a hit anymore. It's probably a better way to say it. He can't take a hit, and he has to play that way. And you can't play football that way. The offense,
Right.
I think if there's one thing for the Bucs fans to look forward to, the offense was so limited with Brady. There was only one thing they could do: drop back and throw. They couldn't run because they knew that he was going to get the ball out quick. The safeties were up, so that killed your running game as well. It was predictable. It was dysfunctional. It's all that, but it wasn't going to get markedly better. Now, the next quarterback is not going to be Tom Brady. I get that, but the next
Right.
quarterback is going to be a hell of a lot more mobile, which is where this game is going. And a lot of these
Yeah.
things that you see scheming guys open, Byron can't scheme guys open. Hard to scheme guys open when your quarterback's standing in the same place. And I'm not defending Byron, but he was limited.
Another layer to it.
Right. So the next guy that comes in, hopefully they're going to get somebody that can move. Derek Carr is not, he ain't Lamar Jackson, but he can move. He can waggle. He can bootleg. He can do that. Same with Jimmy Garoppolo. These guys can run these modern NFL offenses. And I, for one, am looking forward to that part of the post-Brady era. What about you?
Absolutely, because you said the most important thing there, where football is going. These mobile quarterbacks and scheming around them is what's changing the game. So, I mean, even look at championship weekend and the divisional round. what these quarterbacks did in order to keep their teams in the game. I never thought the Jaguars were going to be in the playoffs, but it's because Trevor Lawrence was able to keep his feet moving, to keep the play
Yep.
alive, to try to make something happen. And it was those extra efforts, or being able to scheme a trick play that wasn't so obvious because you could trust your quarterback to make the movement. So while Tom Brady has the release, and while he has used to more consistently have the accuracy and stuff, it was the inability to move your feet to keep the play alive. And that's the
Exactly.
kind of football we're seeing now. Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence did it. And as you said, guys like Derek Carr and them, they can do it. It might not be their bread and butter and go to all the time, but you have to know that you can rely on that play when the time comes. And that just wasn't a part of the Bucs system. There was so many things that played into the predictability of the Bucs scheming this season. And it wasn't just Leftwich and it wasn't just Brady, but those two obviously didn't help.
Casey Hudson joining us here. She covers the Bucs and the Bolts. Before we move on to the rebuild, which I want to talk extensively about, just your thoughts on the last 3 years, and being able to, and I just to me it was just so much fun being able to go into a press conference and sit there and say and ask a question of Tom Brady and have him look you in the eye and like answer your question. It's like, well, I mean, I'm not having a one-on-one with him, but that was pretty cool. Did you get to have any moments with Brady like that you'll remember?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Because of course, when he came in, it was full blown COVID. So that was
Right.
kind of a downer, because it's like, okay, but how do you get to talk to one of the best athletes in the NFL? And so there's the Zoom calls. And yeah, we had our moments on Zoom where I got to ask the question. And it's like, damn, I really got to, ask Tom Brady something. It was a weird reality. And then
Yeah.
comes the season where you can finally go back to the locker room and stuff. So the most memorable thing I would say would actually be this past training camp. I got to ask him a question about, what are his personal requirements of building trust? What's the most important requirements to build trust with your receivers? Because we've seen moments where
Great
you
question.
think that it's going to be Brady Evans, Brady Godwin, but we've seen him trust guys like a Scotty Miller, when fans counted Miller out, or Brashad Perriman and Tyler Johnson. So I really wanted to know that. And as you described, the lock in, he makes the eye contact, he gives you this answer, he delivers, he thinks about it. And it was just like, wow, I got to ask something that I've been thinking about since he
Yeah.
probably got here. I got a chance to, look him in the eye and, have that one-on-one. And training camp's a little bit more intimate because there's about
Yeah.
maybe 16 seats out. They might be full, they may not be full, and then Brady's just sitting right there. So this past training camp was a great one. But overall, my favorite thing in the last 3 years is that, I grew up a Dolphins fan. My mom worked for the Dolphins before I was born, so it was all about them. And then my dad was a huge Bucs fan. So these have been my two teams my entire life.
Mm.
Of course, AFC wise, you hate the Patriots. So I was raised to hate Tom Brady. Then I love him because he comes to Tampa Bay, plays for my dad's team, and now it's all about Tampa Bay for me to I'm such a daddy's girl. So in that, we saw the transformation of, Brady with the Patriots, ties a little tighter, a little bit more clip, a little bit more to the point, and then Tampa Bay Tom was just this,
Love
more, yeah, like nothing's gonna beat Tampa Bay Tom. I'm sorry. Sorry, Patriot
it. Yeah.
fans. You guys
Oh my
didn't get the
goodness.
best version of him. We did. So that's probably my favorite part overall of the experience of having Tom Brady. You just got to see a bit of a looser side of him, a little bit more open. I think some people have to respect and understand that someone of his caliber can't be that open. That stuff's used against people like that all the time. So I think as open as he could be, he did, and I think he did that in Tampa Bay. So love a chance to see that. Love that I got to ask him some questions. Love that we got a chance to get to know a different side of him. And, I'm
Mm.
so happy that he closed out his career here in Tampa and nowhere else, because, we at least get to close out the memory with Tom Brady, one of the greatest to ever do it.
So I want you to reenact when your dad called you and you called him and said, I got to ask Tom Brady a question. What was that like?
Oh my gosh. Well, parents, I mean, at least great parents, they're honest, they're harsh.
Yeah,
And my
that's me.
parents give me feedback on everything that I do. So
Right.
sometimes I can be a bit of a speedy talker when
Hmm.
either when my nerves get to me or my excitement gets to me. And, my grandmother's Latin, so that's even worse because Spanish people talk at the speed of light
Yes.
and they think it's normal. It's not. So the first thing my dad said was, well, did he understand you? And I'm like, first of all, father. Do you hear what I just said? Like, I'm talking about your team. I'm talking about one of the greatest quarterbacks in the league. And he goes, but did he understand you? So
Oh
I was
my.
like, yes, I spoke at a good pace. I got it out clear and concise. He didn't look at me and go, huh? And so he was like, oh, okay. And he goes, well, how long was his response? And I'm like, watch it. I sent it to you guys. I texted it in the family group text message. So it was
Uh,
like I was being completely what's the word? I was just being completely like locked
Vulnerable and
in on
honest. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
like and I'm excited and my dad's just like going down the list of
All right. So
things like
once he looked at it, what did he say? I mean,
oh, that's my girl. I'm showing it
that's
to
what.
everybody. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, okay, now you're proud. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
The
Yeah.
stamp of approval that we go through. Yeah. So, I mean, he was so impressed. He was showing it to everybody. I mean, till this day, him and my mom still think it's relevant. And, now with the retirement conversation, it's like, well, my daughter got to ask Tom Brady a question.
That's
Like,
right. That's right.
yeah. I'm like, I got to
I'm
ask him a few questions, guys. Thank you.
I'm clinging to the fact that I asked him the last football question in his last football press conference. Now I will say this: someone else asked a question, but he didn't answer it. He blew it off. So the last the last one before his farewell speech was mine,
Goes
and
to
I'm
you.
I'm clinging to that with everything I own. So yeah,
That's a big one, JP.
right. I'll take that. I'll take that. And it was that moment. I mean, this may sound weird to everybody, but when he looks you in the eyes and he's actually like, and when he answered my questions, he would
Hmm.
look me in the eye and like be very sincere about his answer. And like, and I'm, it's, I hate to say this, but it's like, sometimes when you're talking to people and you're not really hearing what they're saying because you're like
Yep.
so transfixed on the
Soup.
nonverbal that's going on
Yep.
between you and them. And you're like,
The
huh?
heavy eye
What?
contact.
Like
Yeah,
I gotta go
because
back and look
after
at
you're
my
kind
as
of
I'm
like,
holding
"Oh,
my phone up, I gotta go look at what he said because he was like glaring into my soul with those blue, like those
I have
eyes. Like,
had
what
to
the hell
do
is
that." I have had to do
right?
that. After a game, I asked him about Kate Otten, have no idea what he said, but I had to go back and be like, "Okay, actually, he did answer the question about Cade. Great kid, loves football, all these things." But that all went over my head in the moment. It's the
Oh my
Tom
god.
Brady inserts nerves in
Oh
anybody.
my god,
It's
yeah.
the eye contact. It's totally eye contact.
Well,
Anyone
I've been
else
doing
I can
this.
talk to, it feels like I'm shooting the shit. But with him, it was just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
It's funny. I've been doing this longer than you have. And I've interviewed a lot of big time stars, but that whole interaction with him was like, all of those interactions. It became a little bit more commonplace, but it was still sometimes, it was nerve wracking, and you want to make sure that your question is good. And there were a couple times
Hmm.
where I asked him questions that were, shall I say, uh, challenging for him to admit
Hmm.
that there were things that he was not doing well. And there were times when there were certain questions that I wanted to ask that I just, like, he's the GOAT, man. I can't ask him about I can't ask him about
Well, you
that.
got to read the room and you
Right.
know when he
Exactly.
is going
Some
to answer a
people
question
don't,
and when
by the
he's
way.
not.
Yeah.
My biggest stress factor, honestly. But like I think it's a waste of a question when in your gut, in your heart of hearts, you know that it's not going to be answered. When you know they're going to avoid it, I feel like there's a different approach you can have there because some media is just getting far removed from the fact that you're supposed to be building relationships with these guys because when they trust you, they give you
Right.
information. When they give you information, you're connecting them to the fan base and that's what I thought media was all about when I got into it. So
It's a great point.
those questions, are important on how you formulate them and when you choose to do them. You can ask those tough questions, but the timing of it. If you know you're going to get them in practice the next day or in the open locker room, they're going to take that much more time to answer your question once they've cooled off the next day versus in the heat of the moment when they're probably still processing how they even feel then too. Like it's not like I've ever been a professional athlete, but I know when
No,
I
you're
got off
right.
the soccer field, if something pissed me off, I didn't have a great response for anybody. I was a terrible loser.
It's good. It makes you a better athlete, in my opinion. And it's a great point that you make because so many people in the media now are about the gotcha question, or they get fed a question from their producer that doesn't have to be in the
Mhm.
room to ask the question. And they
Right.
feel like they have to ask that question because somebody had told them to do so. And there's,
Mhm.
sometimes you got to say, no, I'm not asking that question, or I'm going to formulate it in a different way to make it more palatable and more agreeable
Yep.
to the room and the situation. So, you got to have a little bit more experience in those situations. And, I think a lot of times Tom dealt with questions that weren't presented that way and walked off the
Mhm.
podium. So we had that.
Oh, we used to
happen.
time them. We were like, is
Yeah.
Tom going to hang out for 30 seconds or a minute and 10 seconds this time? I mean, he has
Yeah.
record short pressers. That was probably also entertaining, even though it wasn't that great. But
Did you
still,
ever have
memories of Tom.
Did you ever have an out of maybe press conference happenstance with him that will stand out on the field, like where he was in practice? Because there were moments in practice that we were close enough to see things that a lot of people don't get to see.
Maybe training camp. I loved him and Ryan Jensen's whole routine and just the excitement that they would have to overly powder Jensen. And then, when he would be
Oh
sitting there
my God!
talking,
Why did I know you were going there? This is great, though.
but
Explain
watching
to the
that so
people
up close.
overly powder. Then people don't know what that means, but you're going to have to get a little bit more technical. Your dad may not like this, but you're going to
Oh,
have to do that to explain to people what you're talking about.
get into the raunch of it all. Well, obviously, the biggest standing joke when Brady got here was the fact that Jensen had to get more baby powder to dry up his goods, his area. He's a sweaty man. So it's one thing to hear about that. It's another thing to see it from a far distance in practice during COVID
Yes,
protocols. You got a mask on. If you're wearing sunglasses, they're fogging up. You're not
right.
getting the real feel of everything. And then no COVID protocols this year. You're finally this much closer to the guys. You can see everything clearly. And when I tell you, it was really a full bottle of baby powder that Ryan Jensen needed to try to contain. And I say try in all caps, contain the sweaty
Oh,
situation he had going on down there. And he's just sitting there fanning. You got powder just like popping up all over him. And Brady's just sitting there assessing the situation. Like I've never seen a man assess another man's area so closely to make sure that it's dry. I got so many inappropriate pictures and videos of it too, and I wanted to post it, but I was like, how do I explain this and people don't take it out of context?
and that's where this whole season went wrong because he had to do the same thing with Hainsey. He had to do it again,
Right.
and it's like,
All over again. It
how do
took
you start a
Jensen a year
season
to
having
learn
to
how to
do that again?
properly powder. Right.
Right. I
So
mean,
poor Hainsey.
oh,
He
and
had
God
to
forbid.
really feel that one out.
No wonder he had to get out of the game when Nick Leverett came in the last game. So I'm not doing this again. I'm not going through this again with another
It's a whole other guy.
behind.
They probably
God.
didn't even know. They didn't powder him, and then that affects Tom Brady's game. So that was a part of the issue.
Oh
Not
God,
not getting powdered down properly.
I'm glad I
That
asked
would
that
be I don't
question.
know how telling I was gonna say, I don't know how telling that is that of all the close-up experiences I've had with Tom, I'm like, it's him powdering Ryan Jensen's
Yeah,
butthole. Like,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
that's the way it
really
goes.
weird thing.
And I think it, to make somewhat of a segue, that there is no length that he would not go to get the details right. And I'm serious
Mhm.
about that. It's like, okay, so I might fumble the ball in this situation. So how are we going to change this? We're bringing in the baby powder. There was no detail that was overlooked. That just you had to say it, you had to do it, you had to, whether it was running a route at 15 yards as opposed to 14 and a half. That
Mhm.
you're gonna this is going to be a problem. And I think if there's one thing I'm going to take from the Brady's whole experience, it was how the guys took everything to another level, accountability to
Yeah.
another level, details to another level, and just really understand how to play the game at an elite level.
Mhm.
And it just, that to me was a master's class in teamwork, leadership, and championship football. And in any endeavor that you're going to be great at or be the greatest in the world at, there has to be a winning edge. And for him, it was that preparation, the absolute attention to every single detail, leading by example in a real way. That's
Yes.
what I'm taking away from my Tom Brady masterclass. How about you?
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny that you say that because I also think that's part of what played into him deciding to leave football. I don't think
Yes.
that he felt confident about his level of leadership. I think it felt out of character for him, some of the responses that he started to have, or I think he was too exhausted to show up in moments that he probably needed to show up more because it's a lot. It's a toll to be a leader through
Yep.
all phases of football. And so the leading by example part was crucial. Yeah, he may have been in this game for 22, 23 years and seasons, but missing training camp, that's not characteristic for him. I think that he carried those kind of things and the lack of accountability so close to heart for him because it was not up to standard for himself. And I think that also made him realize. So definitely the leadership. Every player that you talk to that's been around Tom Brady said it. He leveled everything up. He changed their way of thinking. So now they have something that they can carry into the next couple years of their career they could help them play to another level and another standard. He's taught these guys about their health, their bodies, and how you can't just run it into the ground and do whatever off the field either. That's crucial because we're
Yep.
talking about a sport that's still trying to learn how to protect the bodies of one of the highest contact sports out there. And so I think he just imparted so much knowledge on these guys, such a standard for leadership. And what they're seeing in him choosing to hang up the cleats is, hey, when you can't give to your team 150%, you have to step away. And that's a huge accountability thing to put in motion at 45 years old when life's teaching you a lot of new things, because Brady's going through so many things at once and still trying to do things at the highest level of morality.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and you hit it right on the head. He couldn't lead by example. He couldn't, be that quarterback that stood in and took the shots time and time again to help his team win. He knew he couldn't survive it, so he couldn't take the contact. And he'd look at the film like everybody else was looking at the film, like, come on, man, you got to step up in the pocket and take that hit and make that throw. He knew he couldn't do it anymore, and at that point, you're letting your teammates down. How can you lead if you're taking 11 days off in training camp? How can you lead if you're going to a birthday party or a wedding and not coming back to do the walkthrough with your team? Those are things that he wasn't able to do or wasn't doing. And you can't, in the next day, get on the sideline and start yelling at your offensive line when you weren't at the meetings in the morning. Even when you're Tom Brady, that comes off as, it may not come off as hollow to the guys you're talking to because they still see you as Tom Brady, but with some they do. With some it's going to. And
it did.
And more than anything, to your point, inside you, you're not doing what you should be doing. So it's hard
100%.
to lead when it's not authentic to yourself, right? I think in the end, that's a conflict, an inner conflict that he probably didn't want to live with, and and that led to the retirement. So.
Well, yeah, because then the other thing I thought of is when everyone defended, like, oh, he's Tom Brady, he can miss 11 days of training camp. It's not about Tom Brady being Tom Brady. It's the fact that he's not building that chemistry with guys he's going to have to rely on during the season. They're not Tom Brady. This is new for them. So that's part of being a leader, doing things that aren't, it's not about you. It's about them. So while this might be your 17,000th rodeo, this is their first. And it was important for him to be there for him. So, yeah, I totally agree.
Good stuff with Casey Hudson, covers the Bucs and the Bolts and so much more. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back on the other side and talk about the Bolts. She's down at the All-Star game, so we'll get some perspective on that and what that's going to be like. So stay with us. Quick break. Back in a moment with Casey Hudson. Stay with us. Year, many of us have made improvements to our homes, so call the folks at Italiano and discuss these upgrades to make sure you have enough coverage. According to a recent report, almost 64% of homeowners don't have enough insurance on their home, which is their most valuable asset. Also, a great time to make sure you have flood insurance. Even if your mortgage company does not require flood insurance, your home could still be at flood risk. Another big item as we enter hurricane season is making sure your pool enclosure is added to your policy and there will be no issue at claim time. That happens a lot. So call your friendly agent at Italiano Insurance to review your policies today. 813-877-7799 or ItalianoInsurance.com. Well, it's that time of year to renew or shop your health insurance provider, and you can get great health insurance for $20, $30, $50 a month. Just call 888-325-0605 to help navigate the health insurance marketplace. 1 out of 3 people in Florida are uncovered because they think they can't afford it. Not true. I made the call a couple of years ago and they helped me get Blue Cross Blue Shield coverage, Florida Blue, for just $20 a month. Last year it went up to $49. Oh well. It all depends on your income and your family situation. It's a free call, 888-325-0605. They will ask for some income information. So if you have your tax returns available, that will be great, but you don't need it. They'll just answer some simple questions, and the highly trained reps will do the work for you to find out what your subsidy will be. 888-325-0605. And if you have a plan through your employer, you may be able to get it cheaper. It's a free call, so find out, folks. This has been a lifesaver for me and saved me thousands of dollars over the last few years, and you can choose your plan. It's a no-brainer. Find out. Make the free call. 888-325-0605. Get covered like me and thousands of others. 888-325-0605. The PGA Tour is back. The Valspar Championship returns to Innisbrook March 16th to the 19th with 4 days of great golf action and a host of fun activities that make it Tampa Bay's hottest spring sports ticket. Every tournament day offers something different. On Friday, we'll celebrate St. Patrick's Day with the wearing of the green. Saturday means Valspar Live, where tournament patrons will be able to enjoy country music superstar Darius Rucker with a free 90-minute show after the conclusion of play. And on Sunday, we're going to crown a champion. You don't want to miss it. Everybody will be there. Tickets on sale now at valsparchampionship.com for all tournament days, both grounds and premium ticket options. You don't want to miss it. The 2023 Valspar Championship. Hey guys, it's a new year, so are you looking for a new you to lose weight, lean up? There are many diets and chiropractors and weight loss clinics out there, but you know where to start? Bay Area Modern Medical Center. Chris Lugo, PA, and his professional staff will devise a personal plan for you that gets results and help you keep the weight off. Everybody metabolizes food and supplements differently, and many of these other approaches are designed for the masses, the quick weight loss, but it doesn't stay off, right? Chris will spend one-on-one time with you to find out what works best for you, so the weight comes off safely without use of drugs that only work temporarily. So call 844-977-3477 or go to BAMMC.com. And Chris will join us each Monday at 11:45 to talk about your wellness and the significant injuries to athletes in the sports world. That's 844-977-3477 or BAMMC.com.
Pure Sports. JP is back on. Welcome back. FanStream Sports.
All right, welcome back to the JP Peterson Show. We thank you so much for joining us. Casey Hudson's joining us live from the NHL All-Star Game down in Sunrise, where she will be watching Nikita Kucherov and Andrei Vasilevsky in that incredible 3-on-3 tournament. And Casey, I tell you, this is we'll finish up on the Bucs here in a second, but this All-Star Game, and we'll get to the Bolts. I love the format. The 3-on-3 is just the best thing ever. It's the goofiest thing. But we'll get to that in just a second because I want to finish up on the Bucs and Tom Brady because we haven't talked about what's next. Who do you think the OC is going to be? This is a weird deal now because the Bucs have to find a quarterback and an OC. You've got kind of a lame duck coach situation here. You know, I think there is a scenario where you can get right back in hunt in this crappy division, but there's a lot of work to be done here. How do you see all this playing out?
My biggest thing, and so my takeaway from the season when it came into the coaching debacle and how they were going to kind of rebuild from there is because Todd Bowles is such a defensive-minded coach. Some defensive-minded coaches, especially ones that try to find success in the league, I think they're the kind of coaches to where their OCs have full reign and control of what's going on, and they can trust them to do their job. I don't think he could trust Byron to do his job, so I think he was put in a position to make these haphazard decisions, which is why a lot of things just didn't make sense. No one was functioning in the role that was going to best help them. So this OC, whoever this guy is going to be, has to be someone who Todd Bowles can fully trust to run that offense without him even having to blink an eye over there. And I know that a lot of people said that when Monken was here under Goder wasn't that coach that would let Monken do what he needs to do. He wasn't alleviating him to fulfill his role entirely. So a lot of people want to see Todd Monken get that second chance. I liked the Dan Pitcher conversation because if you look at some of the situations between like the Bengals, there's some similarities between the Bengals offense and the Bucs offense, especially when it comes to a very unhealthy or, an unreliable offensive line. They had a quarterback with a quick release. They were able to make some things still happen. So you think of a guy that got sacked 29 times through 10 games and was still able to move his offense down the field. That plays into the play calling and, the scheming. So I really liked that. They interviewed a lot of guys that this would be an upgrade for them. So they're passing coaches, they're position coaches. I don't feel like this team's ready to give somebody their big break to see what's going to happen. I think we've tried to see what's going to happen too long here. You need somebody seasoned, you need somebody who can handle that OC position. So I like the Todd Monken conversation. There was things that I liked about when he was here. He made Jameis Winston look like a decent quarterback in a lot of situations. And that's very telling. It's not that Jameis Winston wasn't a good quarterback, but he needed a lot of handholding in certain ways. And I think Monken and him were able to have a decent relationship to do just enough there. He has familiarity with Mike Evans. I think he would do great with that wide receiving room. So between his familiarity, between the way that he just ran Georgia's team, he's not going to be that guy that's going to come in and try to turn this team into a college football team. He knows what that NFL level entails. So a seasoned OC is where I'm leaning towards. I think Monken can use this position in many ways because some of the assets that he can bring over from Georgia could be a plug and play situation. Some of the relationships that he has with other guys that are going to be free agents this season. So between the cap issue, the experience issue, Monken makes sense. And I think he can bring in some assets with him.
Boy, it would be interesting to reunite Monken with the number 1 overall pick and bring him in here. And the guy who knows the Buccaneer receivers pretty well. And I think he's available. Can you, listen, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but can you imagine? Can you imagine bringing Jameis Winston back? I mean, the dude
that
threw
would be a hoot.
Todd Monken, I know it's, I think some Buccaneer fans would lose their freaking minds, but
oh man,
let's just have some fun.
Man. At this point, but we're thinking about chemistry and relation and connection and things that just happen to work out in a way. And,
Right.
I know a lot of people are going to look at what happened over at the Saints. He got beat out by Andy Dalton. I don't really buy that for the most part. And I'm not a Winston fan, was not a fan. My brother played football with the kid at FSU. I'm really far from a fan of Winston. But when I tell you, he didn't get beat out by Andy Dalton. A back injury is a tremendous injury to try to come back from in any way, shape, or form. You can only shoot it up so much, guys. The reality is you don't hurt your back in the beginning of the season and come back and finish the season whatsoever, unless you want to not walk again or not play anymore. So I just think that there was a lot of other factors there, but to reunite with Monken, to reunite with Evans, to get to know a guy like Chris Godwin. I mean, look at some of the plays that he had with the rookie. I'm drawing a blank on his name. He was always the deep pass on the Saints, brand new guy. It'll come back to me later, but yeah.
That
him
guy.
like that guy. But he still has those deep passes. The biggest thing for Winston is health and the respectability of a coach that he can communicate with. It's communication issues with Winston, but he's got to be a lot more mature now since 2 years ago. Fingers crossed. So I wouldn't hate it, but it could be an option. And then here's the other thing. Here's a hot take. I don't hate Blaine Gabbert at the helm. I actually liked Blaine Gabbert at Jacksonville because what nobody talks about when they trash Blaine Gabbert is the trash offensive line he had with the Jaguars. In 2011, this guy had 40 sacks. Like, who's supposed to do their job when they're constantly on the ground? He can move his legs. That's how he tore his ACL in the preseason 4 or 5 years ago, was moving his legs. He could be mobile. He's got a fast pace on the ball. I think with a little bit more guidelines and structure, or do this, don't do that, Blaine Gabbert is good enough to do what needs to be done.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of his as a backup quarterback, and we watch him play in practice, and I know that's not, it's not real game stuff, but the dude can throw the football, he can move, he's big, he's experienced, and everybody wants to look at what he went through. I agree with you. Go look at the teams that he played for, straight trash. And we're looking at a lot of different options here. There's not, 2020 Tom Brady ain't walking through that door anymore. So, we'd love to say that, but what are your options? Baker Mayfield worked with Todd Monken and got to the playoffs. Is that some experience that you'd like to go down that road? What do you think?
Oh gosh. I have to try to have like a very unselfish response to this because another guy that's just like not on my favorites list, but you got to think about it this way. Mayfield's almost very similar to the whole like Johnny Manziel conversation. He's got so much to prove, so much backlash to go against. So that hustle is going to be there. But again, it's going to take the right coach to pull something out of him, and Monken and him having that experience together, he's going to try to show up in Tampa Bay at the best that he can be. So you can rely on that whether you like the person or not. I think this just goes back to what we talked about a minute ago, though, JP, is like where the league is going. These mobile quarterbacks, these guys that can do, these unorthodox things. People love watching Josh Allen play, but how many turnovers does he have in the red zone? They still support him. They still want him there. So I think it's taking that leap of faith of being like, okay, now it's time to get with the times. Baker Mayfield is with the times quarterback. He can move behind a bad O-line. He can move behind a decent O-line. You give this guy time to throw, he can make better decisions. So if this team is moving in a different direction, I don't hate the Baker Mayfield thing. I want someone where there's going to be a real chemistry between the OC, the quarterback, and a real open conversation so that we're not sitting here looking at Tom Brady waving off Byron Leftwich because it's a stupid call. If we don't get an offensive coordinator that comes in and goes forward on certain fourth downs, I will shave my head, because every team that has found success has
Yeah.
not punted on fourth down every single
Well,
time.
a
The
lot of
teams
that's
that
on
beat the
Todd Bowles.
Bucs,
Yeah. A lot of
that's
that's on
true.
Todd
That's
Bowles.
true.
That's Todd
But the
Bowles.
coaching staff as a whole, dang.
Yeah.
Well, I can't handle watching another season of that. That's the only thing
No,
I can
me neither.
promise anybody.
No, Todd needs to, if he's going to be a head coach in this league, he's got to drastically change the way he manages games and the way he looks at games. Defensive coaches tend to be much more conservative, and you can't do that in this league. He's got to
No.
make some changes in that regard. And I'm not, I don't know if you know this, but I love Todd Bowles as a human being. I mean, I can't say enough of him as about a father, a husband, just the dude. He is an awesome, awesome guy and a tremendous defensive coordinator. What I've seen as a head coach, I don't particularly like. I don't like his game management, the stuff you just mentioned about fourth down, using the timeouts in certain ways. I just think he's very conservative. I don't think he's you fire Byron Leftwich midseason. I'm sorry. It's you are the freaking head coach. And if that guy's not doing what you want to do, I don't care if you don't have a play caller. Because when you don't make those hard decisions, you're telling everybody around you, I don't hold people accountable. And when you
That was the problem.
Your secondary is blowing day one installs in the playoffs in a huge moment, leading CeeDee Lamb wide ass open in the end zone. That's a lack of accountability. That didn't happen on that play. That happened in practice for the previous 18 weeks. And so I saw a team that had very little accountability compared to the previous two seasons. I saw a coach that was over his skis in terms of managing the modern game, in terms of going forward on fourth down. I saw a coach that was unable to make the tough, hard decisions on personnel and coaching staff. And to me, and I see 4 years of real bad football in New York, and I say to myself, look, he may not be cut out to be a great head coach in this league. And that's not, to me, there's only about 15, 20 guys on the planet that can do it. Saying that about, I can't do it, you can't do it. It's not a horrible slight to the man. I just think he's not, I don't think he's cut out to be a great head coach.
No, I couldn't agree more. I actually chatted about this on Jolly Rogers and Touchdowns a couple weeks ago, saying, as much as I respect Todd Bowles and love what he is good at, certain things that give great head coaches that edge are the accountability factors. You can't be so passive. There's just a lot of things that made it seem like he was so passive or didn't want to hurt feelings, or I don't know what it was, but it's just the indecisiveness or the reservation. It doesn't work as a head coach. That's mediation. That's a whole different thing. You could have that one-on-one relationship with guys when you're the coordinator because it's a different situation. As a head coach, you have to do exactly what you said there. Make the difficult calls, do the difficult cuts. The Colts had to do it. So many teams had to make these transitions in the middle of the season to at least start getting their team heading in a different direction. And if they continue to fail, at least you figured out, you got that much closer to figuring out actually why. So I respect him as a DC. I think he's brilliant. I love, the form that he had the defense in the past 2 seasons, but I could agree. I don't know if head coaching's really for him, because guys like Bruce Arians and Andy Reid and those caliber of men, they're so good at that for a reason. You couldn't walk off a field like at being Tom Brady or whoever you were and not get chewed out by Bruce Arians if he saw something wrong. And that holding you accountable thing, there was a lot of finger pointing this season, which made it feel like, no one stepped up to figure out what's actually going on. It really looked like everyone gave up in the middle of the season and we just had to sit there and watch it unfold.
I totally agree. Casey Hudson is joining us here. You hear her on Pewter Report and on her podcast as well. Covers the Bucs and the Bolts. You're down there in the NHL All-Star Game City, Fort Lauderdale. We won't call it Miami because it's much different. What's the vibe down there? We got Kucherov and Andrei Vasilevsky fixing to play some 3-on-3 with the greatest players in the world. I don't even think it's close, Casey. This is the best All-Star game in sports. Hands down, not even close.
It is. Me being so close to the team, continue to feel a little type of way about Braden Point not being a part of NHL All-Star Week.
Yeah.
because of all the highlight goals we've seen this season, Braden Point has been a part of them. Like
Two.
he's had just as
Two of them.
pretty goals as Tage Thompson.
Yep.
So that one still kind of hurts. But as for the vibe, it's so cool because you just see all sorts of families and fans that have flown in from all over to come watch the top NHL players in the league, um, show you why hockey is so spectacular and
Yeah.
what really goes into this as an athlete. It's not just hand-eye coordination or foot-eye coordination. It's everything. So I'm psyched to kind of see Nikita Kucherov be able to kind of just completely go off. I think that this can be a nice little mental turning point for Vasilevsky because he loves being challenged. He's the ultimate competitor. If you ever get a chance to just listen to him talk, and something like this, while it's fun, I think it'll help raise the competitor level of both of their brains heading into the second half of the Bolt season. So I'm excited to see them. There's other guys I'm excited to see just because I love this sport. Because I am a psychopath and competitive, I will be watching Bo Horvat like a hawk because now he's with the Islanders, and I feel like that's like the key piece the Islanders were missing. They've been trying to change their lines all season to find rhythm. Matt Barzal's not particularly the scoring guy that he's been for them the past couple of years because it's been all on his shoulders. And now you've got a guy coming in with 31 plus goals and 54 plus points, and he didn't have the support that he needed with the Canucks, and now he's being plugged into a system where he can do what he has wanted to do all season long. So I'm watching him. I'm watching Horvat to see what the competition's about to be like in the Eastern Conference.
So yeah, that's a good point. And getting back to Vasi, do you think he enjoys this 3-on-3 onslaught that's coming at him with the greatest players in the world? I mean, that can make a goalie look kind of silly. It's setting him up for failure in a big way. Because it's not like you have anybody in front of you that's trying to keep them from scoring. The guys that are out there,
it's way different.
You're pretty much on your own, right?
It's so different. But so I'll say two things, and I feel like I can say this without anybody getting offended because I grew up playing soccer. Goalies are different. They're the ones in the corner doing different things. They're the ones that are having the weird conversations. They function differently. So already knowing that about a goalie and somebody who chooses to stand in a position where things are coming at them at high speeds, that already tells you something else. But all that to say that Vasi has always mentioned that he loves more shots coming at him. It keeps him crisp. It keeps him locked in. He feels like he's more stale or, not as sharp when he's just sitting there hanging back, waiting for action to come to him. So being in a 3-on-3 situation with the best players in the world, like Vasi's going to get a practice that he doesn't get to get throughout the entire season, because he doesn't have that protection in front of him. So for somebody who's so highly competitive and meticulous, I love how meticulous Vasilevsky is. I feel like this is going to be a dangerous level up for him at the halfway point of the season because he's going to evaluate his performance, even though this is all supposed to be fun and games, and he's going to pull this, from All-Star Weekend into the second lap of the season.
And what's on tap for tonight and tomorrow for what's going on with they got skills competitions coming up. Sure there'll be some media stuff coming up. What do you got going there today?
So we got a Fan Fest beach festival going on at Fort Lauderdale Beach from 12 to almost 4 o'clock. So that's where I'm going to swing by first. Go check out everything going on with that. So it's very similar to Super Bowl when you go for media week and they have like in the convention centers, the simulation things that replicate NHL style, whatever. So they'll have games for the kids. They'll have like shooting, check your shooting mileage and all these different things. So I'm excited to see that, try it myself, see how athletic I actually am.
I want to see some video. Let's get some video.
I was going to say that may or may not be
tomorrow.
on video.
Yep. It better be.
And then, I know, why not? As long as I don't look completely horrible, then sure. Mind you, I played soccer, so I don't know what my hand-eye coordination looks like. I can play beer pong on a good night. So they have that going on, and then at 3:30 today, we have the first half of media day. So we'll, get some of the guys in. I think they're probably going to start with Eastern Conference guys come in for press conferences. We'll hound them with questions of excitement. And then later tonight is the NHL All-Star opening party, I think. And it's Greg Wolf, the arena host for the Lightning, who will be DJing and hosting. Yeah.
Nice.
So I'm like, okay, this will be cool to see. Judging his music taste, we'll see how cool of a night this actually is.
All right, we're on a full report tomorrow on his music choice. Might have to get him on as well. Yeah,
to defend himself if it's not good. I'll be like, oh my god, he opened up with Like, you got to
Full
set the
report.
tone.
Yeah, Casey's going to be back
I'll have
tomorrow
an
with
entire
us
breakdown.
for our first hour. So we're going to want a full report. And to end this conversation where it started, you're going down to Fort Lauderdale Beach. I could tell you about, and the older people in my audience will know about the candy store and the Button. Some of these beach bars. Fort Lauderdale Beach looked nothing like it does now. Back
is that where I have
in
to
the
go?
late 70s and the early 80s, it was a little bit more slummy, a little bit more old Clearwater Beach-ish, where a lot of these bars were they were big, these huge dive bars, and they were nasty, but they were, I mean, and the candy store was famous for their wet t-shirt contest. And I may or may not have participated in those as an MC or whatever, or a water boy
Is that how you got started?
I bartended
doing
at some of those places, a place called the Shooters, and worked valet at some of the Fort Lauderdale bars way back in the day. And, we'd know all the bartenders and all the hospitality people. We were all just like one big family. So Fort Lauderdale Beach was a whole different animal back in the day. Now it's all cleaned up and nice and these beautiful places and hotels. But back in the day, it was a freaking free for all. It was fantastic. So yeah, way more bougie now than it's ever been. So you'll have fun down there. Now Las Olas, of course, you've been down there, right?
No, I have not.
Boulevard. You've not been to Las Olas Boulevard?
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
and everybody keeps saying like that when I'm like, oh, that's where I'm going this evening, and then I'm like, okay, well, any more details? Because is that
get dressed up?
It's amazing.
Get dressed up. Get dressed up. I mean, it's put on those 6 suitcases that you brought. There should be something in there. You're gonna have to. Yeah, you got. There will be competition.
Actually, I'll leave you with this. My mom was helping me pack because she's the ultimate packer as a military wife, and I suck, as I mentioned. And so while she's helping me create space, she's like, "You have to roll it. I've been telling you this your whole life. Roll your stuff." She used a little bit more vulgarity than that. And so she's pulling everything out of my suitcase, rolling it and putting it back in. And it's like beige leather pants, black leather leggings, black leather top. And she's like, Casey,
what are you wearing?
What is going on? What do we need to talk about here? What do I not know about you? It goes in this whole rampage. And I'm like, Mom, leather just goes with everything. She's like, no, you can't be walking around with a full leather suitcase. Somebody's going to think something's up. I don't know. I just thought I was being stylish, and apparently my mom thinks I'm like some kind of like weird into some weird stuff over here. So you'll see me in leather. That's all I can say.
This parent is smart enough to not do that with their children. I would not come. I don't want to pack anything. I don't want to get in your luggage. I don't want to pack it. My daughter, it's like, see ya. You do it. Go do what you're gonna do. I don't need no. Well, I'm the type of packer I just can't make any decisions now. I gotta make them when I get there. So let's just throw everything in.
Everything in. You just never know.
You just never know.
Yeah, I have the light leather, the heavy leather. No, it was just so funny because by the 12th item, I was just like, Mom, it's not a problem. It's just variety. Like, relax.
All right, so we'll get a full report on all the festivities tomorrow. You might be late. At 10 o'clock might be an early call if you're going to be out on Las Olas later on tonight. But
I'll be good.
we'll get hangover Casey tomorrow from 10 to 11. So we'll talk about the draft then, because I know you want to talk about that today, but we'll do that tomorrow. So thank you so much for joining us as our correspondent down there. And I know might be able to talk to Cooch and Vassy tonight or today or whatever, if there's any media availability. We'll get that as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Very entertaining.
Of course. Thanks. Thank you as always, JP. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right. Appreciate it. All right. We will, if I can find my little button here, you can, I'll let her. I'm so bad at all this, Casey. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Bye-bye. There she goes. I've got 3 mouses here, so I was actually using the wrong mouse. I'm like, why is this not working? We got through it, folks. Our thanks to Casey for joining us, and also Scott Carter from FloridaGators.com, who joined us in the 1020 segment, and really good on what's going on at the University of Florida, brought to you by the Jeeves Law Group. We thank you very much. The Gator Report brought to you by the Jeeves Law Group. And Billy Napier, and as far as what's happening in the NIL world right now and what's going to happen as we move forward in college football. So great stuff. If you want to go back and check that out. Greg Allman joined us right off the top of the show today. Technical issues notwithstanding. And we had a great conversation about Tom Brady and what's next for the Buccaneers as well. So if you missed any of that content, you can always go on our YouTube station, the JP Peterson Show. Please subscribe there as well. On Twitter and on Facebook, you can always watch it there. We're also on RHS TV now. So you can download that on your TV app. If you're a streamer and you have Roku or Apple TV or Fire Stick or any of that stuff, you can search RHS TV. That's Red House Streaming TV. And you can download that app. And we are live on RHS TV each and every day, globally connected to all of your televisions. So we're really appreciative of Red House TV for that as well. All right, we'll be back tomorrow. Casey Hudson is going to join us tomorrow as well, and we'll get a full report from the NHL All-Star Game. And we'll have more on Tom Brady as well as what the Bucs are going to be doing post Brady, and look ahead to the draft and all kinds of good stuff there. So thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget to download our app, FanStream Sports, all one word, and you can listen to the show anytime, anywhere. Have a great day, everybody.